again, thank you for joining us. We have some attendees still joining in. And to the speakers for today, thank you for taking the time to honor this webinar. I'm Syafinaz, partner with RDS's Dispute Resolution Division, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. Let me start off by introducing the speakers for today. First, we have Yang Bahagia Tan Sri Datuk Zainun Ali. Tan Sri needs no introduction. Driven by passion for the law, Tan Sri has held various positions in the legal and judiciary service throughout her career since 1976. Starting in 1976, Tan Sri was appointed as the legal officer of the Ministry of Labour and as well as the Attorney General's Chambers. And thereafter, Tan Sri was appointed in 1979 as magistrate in Malacca, and shortly thereafter became president of the Sessions Court in Johor Bahru in 1981. Thereafter, Tan Sri had an excellent career and then served as a High Court judge from 1998 to 2001 and was elevated to the Court of Appeal in 2007. In April 2012, Tan Sri was appointed as the Federal Court Judge and retired as a Federal Court Judge in October 2018. No doubt, Tan Sri has contributed significantly to the legal and judiciary sector in Malaysia, including having delivered several landmark judgments as a judge of the FX Court. Yang Bahagia Tan Sri was also the first female chairman of the Malaysia Airports Holding Berhad, where Tan Sri served from 2019 to 2020. In addition, Tan Sri has also been a member of the Board of Advisory of the University of Malaya Faculty of Law, Board of Studies at Ahmad Ibrahim Kuliah of Law International Islamic University, as well as the Judicial and Legal Services Association. Thereafter, effective July 2020, Tan Sri was appointed as the Deputy Chairman of the Enforcement Agencies Integrity Commission. And in 2021, Tan Sri was appointed as one of the 5 judges of the Administrative Tribunal of the Islamic Development Bank of Jeddah, where Tan Sri was the only woman on the panel. Tan Sri currently sits on the board of Permodalan Nasional Berhad as a director and is now a member of the advisory board of the United Nations Global Judiciary Integrity Network. Thank you, Tan Sri. It's an honor to have you with us today. Our next speaker for today is Ms. Sharala. Ms. Sharala is the founder and Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Applied Data Science, CADS, which was established in 2015. CADS is actually the only one-stop data science integrated platform provider in this region. And Sharala has partnered with the world's leading data scientists to bring in the Data Science Center program in the United States called the Data Incubator into Malaysia, and thereafter launched the first Data Science Accelerator program in Asia in 2016. Sharala is also listed as one of the 200 most influential people in the field of information technology in the world. Yep. And in 2017, Sharala won the EY Entrepreneur of the Year Award in collaboration with the National Association of Women Entrepreneurs to bring the Data for Her initiative to encourage women involvement in IT and data science, while fostering comprehensive equality, diversity, and inclusivity in the technology industry in Malaysia, which at one point of time undeniably was dominated by men. Right, Ms. Sharala, thank you for agreeing to join us today despite your busy schedule. Thank you.
That was a long intro, but thank you.
Yeah, a lot of good things to say. Our third speaker for today is Professor Madya Dr. Farrah Imran. She'll be joining us soon. Yep. Professor Madya Dr. Farrah Imran is our first national athlete to have received the Surgical Professor Madya title from National University of Malaya, UKM. Currently, Prof is a senior lecturer and consultant plastic surgeon in UKM. And she's responsible for academia, administration, medical education, research, as well as clinical work. Currently, Prof is also the head of Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery and Burns Unit at UKM. Yep. Professor Madya has actually, she actively advocates ethics, principle, integrity, and she's a mental strength activist actually among her colleagues and students. Her various appointments in the national and ministerial region include being in the Malaysian Anti-Doping Agency Education Committee, Malaysian Anti-Doping Agency Results Management Committee. Prof was also in the National Women in Sports Committee of the Ministry of Youth and Sports Malaysia. And despite Prof's busy schedule, she also voluntarily serves on the committee of the chapter of Women Surgeons, College of Surgeons and Academy of Medicine in Malaysia, as well as being a member of the International Society of Surgery, and also a life member of the Medical Legal Society of Malaysia, and a life member of the Malaysian Society for Simulation in Healthcare. Yeah. Illustrious career, Prof. Prof will be joining us shortly. So since we already have quite a number of attendees in, we can start the session. Perhaps I'll start off with Tan Sri.
Thank you.
Tan Sri, you have spent around over 20 years in the judiciary since you were appointed as Judicial Commissioner in 1996 until you retired as a federal court judge in 2018. I'm not sure if Tan Sri has heard this before, but I believe many others would have at least heard it once in our lifetime. The notion of women judges are not quite good judges because they tend to get so emotional. What do you have to say about this, Tan Sri?
Well, to me, that's a highly provocative question or statement to make. And you're very bold to have asked me that. But don't worry, I'm not going to flip. I will not be emotional about it. I'll answer it calmly and coolly. Okay. You see, I think let's touch base first and let's define what do you mean when you say getting so emotional? What does it mean really? And if that's the case, if it's true that happens, whether this will affect our judicial decision making. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Let me, I think, say at the outset that there will be at least 3 occasions or 3 situations where you can see the judge in operation. One, when the judge sits in a collegial setting with other judges to discuss cases, or on the bench in open court, or when the judge writes her grounds of judgment. So in these 3 situations there, you can see how the judge approach his or her case, sorry. So in these 3 situations, probably you want to see how the judge relates to the cases before her, and in comparison with her male colleagues, whether she is emotional in dealing with the cases. You see, I think for the longest time, all of us at law school, even and as we work, have this notion that judges must hear the cases without bias. We must be impartial, we must be completely independent, and there should be no prejudice at all. So therefore, we have to, imbibe this decision, this phenomenon that judges must exercise all these attributes. But I think I want to say this, but in all my 22 years on the bench, I've never come across any woman judge who is emotional, never. And they have been my colleagues for so long. In fact, I think the opposite is true. The contrary is true. Women judges have shown all the attributes which I can relate to, like a diamond. The 4 C's in a diamond: cut, color, and clarity. And carrot, well, we have the 4 C's as well. We are cool, composed, circumspect, and calm. So you see. Anyway, even assuming that women judges are emotional, I want to ask again: is that a bad thing, especially in making decisions? All right. You see, for the longest time, I think emotions have been regarded in contrast with reason to be like night and day, isn't it? You have to think with reason, decide your cases with reason, and not be emotional about it. Judges must be free from bias and strive, and we should strive towards impartiality in order to live up to the rule of law. That should be, we should not let our subjective idiosyncrasies come in the way when making decisions. But you see, I've come across a lot of writings, even from judges, from opinion writers, from lawyers even, to say that having an emotion when hearing a case is helpful. And I agree with that, because when we hear a case, you see, when a judge comes to court, and of course you have the legal text before him, he will be prepared with all the case laws and opinions and so on. But are we prepared to let him be completely free of any other feelings? Because it is important that the judge feels it has some emotion, to be emotive about it, to have intuition, to be sensitized to the issues at hand. Then only he should place himself to be in the skin of the litigants. It's not an easy thing. Of course it's not, but we have to do it. For otherwise, how would you know how to deal with the case? See, I think the whole thing is this, you see, women judges are more sensitive, we are intuitive, and we have the psyche of we try to get into the psyche of the person, the litigant before us. So I think case laws have shown that jurisprudence is more enriched as a result when we get into the cases with empathy. We hear cases with equity, isn't it? So this will go a long way towards giving justice to the litigants. So I think, in my view, emotion is synonymous with a full appreciation of social reality, and reality is actually in the eye of the beholder. We are the beholder of the cases before us, and I believe women judges make assumptions of which their experience counts. It's important. That is why we have to have diversity in the courtroom. Of course, the laws are there. We will take care of precedents when we hear cases and so on, but we come on the bench with a different kind of perspective. And that is why it's important that we have to have diversity on the bench. All right. If a woman judge, I think, is guided by her empathy and works on equity to mitigate the rigors of the law, that she understands other people's motivation, I think this will go a long way towards justice, giving justice to the parties. There was once a writer, Professor Patricia Kane, who said this, she said, what we want to see is that lawyers who can tell their client's story, lawyers who can help judges to see the parties as human beings, who can help remove the separation between judges and litigant. And then what we want from our judges, you see, is a special ability to listen with connection before engaging in the separation that accompanies judgment. So it goes around to say that it is important to have emotions when we hear cases. I can tell it's not an easy thing to do, but we have to do it as best we can. At least try to make an earnest attempt to do so. Because to me, human beings are dual. We must be represented in always dual form. And we make a difference. We succeed in infusing the law with understanding what it means to be fully human. I think this is important because a lot of people, we tend to forget that we have to take care of all these concerns of humanity. Speaking for myself, I think I sometimes have a heightened insight into the disadvantage of those before me in court, which my male colleagues may not have seen, you see, and I think that's important. But if I were to say that, am I being emotional? I don't know, you tell me. But, and Baroness Hale, Lady Brenda Hale, some time ago in 2003 in a Cambridge lecture said that the more diverse bench will bring some collective change of empathy and understanding for the diverse background. And I think she's absolutely right. So when I heard cases, such as the Allah case, the Kugan case, and the Tiar Sandah case, where we have the native customary rights and so on. You have to, but the law is there, the rules are there, the facts are there, but you have to go into the circumstances of what they have to undergo as human beings and see what will be the impact of your decision. So I remember that case, we fought quite tough. I mean, I fought very hard for that case in Kuching, in Sabah, in Sarawak, because the other member of the bench were not with me, and I was the dissenting judge there. So I was trying my best to portray the hardship that they will undergo, the Ibans, if they were to take their land, when they have no way to forage for their livelihood. And but I wasn't able to convince my panel members. But it was heartbreaking, actually, for me to see the consequence of our decision, the majority decision. So hopefully at some point later, it will be reversed, I hope. But back again to the question of why you say that women judges are emotional, so my question is it a bad thing? I don't think it is. It is good to be emotional, because you have to be, to have empathy and compassion for the litigants before you. You have to. Otherwise, then you will take away the justice if you are completely, sterile, I would say, about it. Mm-hmm. All right, so that's my answer.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Very, very insightful.
I want to sample a bit, because
sure,
it was a bit surprising that I hear that you get the same statement in the legal world, because I have had journalists ask me, women don't make great managers because they're emotional. And I remember asking the journalist, so who said that managers cannot be emotional? Right? It's again stereotyping, because you get there's a lot of male lawyers out there and people are watching this, right? But stereotyping, because certain gender holds these roles more than women. Yeah. And I totally agree with Tan Sri, because I remembered saying this, we women might come out emotional because we are very passionate with what we do.
Right.
So when you're very passionate, I guess the way we communicate, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's different. So I think it's time to educate people, what is emotion versus passion.
It's good.
Yeah. Dr. Farrah is with us right now, Prof. Hi, thank you for coming, for joining us. Hello.
Hi,
yeah, we would.
Sharala. Hello, I'm Farrah. Hi.
Hi.
I don't have the fancy background because somehow it doesn't work. So you just have my mug and the lights. I hope it's okay. I'm so sorry.
I love the background. I thought that was a fancy background, by the way. So
real. So I'm like, woohoo. No, I have. So anybody here who's civil servants, we have a Sanggar Kerja. Tan Sri may recognize this from being a judicial time.
Yes.
Work. We all have to move to. So we've come to Kuantan for a working weekend where we do exam questions. So I've made a stopover in somewhere mysterious first. I won't announce it because it must be offline. We'll talk about it offline. But anyway, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. Dr. Farrah, we were talking about emotions. The question I posed earlier to Tan Sri was whether, you have this notion that women judges are not good judges, probably because they tend to get so emotional. So that was what Tan Sri was mentioning, and Sharala correctly pointed out. Why can't we be emotional? Do you face the same, Prof, in the sports world? For example, like, sports. You can't really be a good sports person because you keep on getting emotional, probably when there's a defeat or what, rather than taking it as a stepping stone. You tend to be emotional about it. Do you face that during your career as a national gymnast?
Yeah, so maybe I should give some context to people who confuse me with a gazillion other Farahs out there. There's so many Farahs nowadays, So I'm the old one. I'm the first generation of Farahs. But so I wear many hats. I bring a few hats today, Syafinaz. So I'll be speaking from a medical point of view, athlete, but athlete also encompasses sports officials and coaches. So sports, you cannot talk about it in silo as an athlete, you have to talk about the athlete support system. So I actually was making notes. I don't know if you can see while Tan Sri was talking. And I came in when Tansri mentioned the word duality. And I was like, oh my God, I better take notes. Because Tansri, you mentioned law and humanity. And, we say medicine and humanity all the time because we have I was on a panel with Sharala before, and I'm not sure if I mentioned, we have some very forward-minded senior female professors who spearheaded something called PPA, which is Professional and Personal Development. And now it's been modified to Personal and Professional Advancement, geared at undergraduate doctors, medical students. This is now also carried through to the postgraduate because there's such a need. It goes beyond bedside manner. Okay. It's not just breaking bad news. It's just exactly what Tansri and Sharala mentioned. You mentioned law and humanity. The humanity part is missing in a lot of, I have to be very wary. I'm in a whole 75 group of doctors here. So, sorry, lawyers, I should say. But many people really need to up their game on bedside manner. We know that. I just want to highlight, Syafinaz, a few things that Tansri mentioned and amplify that. The keywords were empathy, diverse, and compassion. All of these are common. I mean, Sharala mentioned it as well in journalism. So I think it's always so reassuring to come to these panels and realize we're also common. We have a lot of commonality in our unique differences, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
But one thing that was very, very powerful that I hope the audience takes back from Tansri's words is the impact and consequences of our decisions. And it's not just for law, it's not just for judges. I mean, it's really everyone. And I think if people have that empathy to understand the consequences of impact and the responsibility, in Bahasa we say amana.
Yes.
I'm not sure how that translates. I think I've tried to find the perfect word. It's not duty, right?
Trust.
Trust, yeah, that's right. It's trust. And it goes beyond just saying, okay, Syafinaz, you're in charge of today's webinar. You would have had to research the speakers. It's what you put in, right? So I hope that makes sense. But yes, the emotional part of the question, yes, there is a lot of assumption that women are emotional when they try to put their word across. And I've seen that in senior professors in medicine, senior surgeons being addressed as such with unfair criticism, but they just power through. And I think with generations coming through, you're actually seeing the other end of the spectrum where they're a little bit, what's the keyword? A little bit loose with that, and they actually make it work for them in a reverse bullying way. I don't know if it can, I don't know, I'm trying to make it sense. They make it work for them when actually it's not the truth, if that makes any sense. So basically you sit at a panel of assessment and the waterworks come out so that you can get a favorable review.
Yeah.
So you're not basing it on merit, you're using the girl card, like, oh my God, so I couldn't go to court today. So some girls do play the girly card.
You have it, you flaunt it, you sell it.
Yeah, no, but
I know what you mean.
I was in court before for a Burns case.
All right.
In the bathroom of a certain court, I won't mention which court. There were young lawyers in there, and I think Tansri, correct me if I'm wrong. You guys wear white baju with black, right? It's white and black. And the discussion that this, white and black, yeah. So the discussion between these two young, I guess, lawyers or associates were to wear black bras underneath their white shirts because the judge today was known to be a little dodgy and a little horny, a little naughty. Sorry. So, and it was just very, sorry, I hope I'm not speaking too direct. I hope I'm not going to be arrested after this for saying anything. But what I'm saying is it's everywhere, right? We have to be honest about what our female companions, what our male companions speak about, because nobody's perfect.
No.
But it goes back to what Tansri mentioned. It's how you carry yourself. You want to have truth. You want to have integrity. And that's the key word, having integrity and be proud of, it's you, right? You don't have to do the whole race card, girl card.
No need.
Yeah. But yes, Syafinaz, definitely being accused of when I bring certain attentions and speak up for the underprivileged. Your emotion. Yeah. So
thanks, Prof. You okay with me addressing you as Prof?
Yeah, please just call me Farrah. No,
Farrah,
no.
Okay, sure.
Farrah, yeah.
Sharala, well, you're in the STEM sector, is science, technology, engineering, and maths. Right. Is that area actually male-dominated, like what everyone else assumed it to be in the first place? Because I used to love maths when I'm in school. Well, I ended up as a lawyer. And Dr. Farrah, you were my idol when I was a child. You were, yes, I was 8. I think you went to Spain when you were 15. I was 8 then.
No way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
must
but
have Milo Ice, okay?
but I ended up, as a lawyer. Didn't go down the sports route at all. But still, so Sharala, is it actually a male-dominated sector, or is it just a presumption that this STEM sector is actually male-dominated?
I love this question because I just hopped out from a talent comp roundtable conversation, right? The country needs more STEM, and so I take a different view about it. I come from a small town in Bukit Mertajam up north, and I talk about this a lot because when I told my mom I wanted to become an engineer, right? And you read that quite a bit because I think that needs to be spoken about because Indian family, it's lawyer, doctor, female had to be that, if anything else is an Asian F, yeah? But when I told my mom I wanted to be an engineer, her main concern was who will marry me. That's all she worried about. Her obligation to me is get good education and get me married off, okay? And when I was in university, and I went to UKM, so that is my alumni. So, I'm a UKM graduate, engineering. And when I was there, I think there was like 300 students and there were 50 girls, okay? It's how do I say it, right? It's different. Girls also learn differently. I realize over the years we are wired differently, how engineering, hands-on stuff comes differently for guys versus me. I maybe shouldn't generalize all women, but, and I had to learn. And I had to learn that. That was an advantage for me to learn that. But today, I question this when they ask about, not enough women in STEM, we need more women in the workforce. But 70% of university students today are women. Okay, there's a big issue about boys not making it to the university. Now, women being in STEM, science, technology, maths, maybe engineering, not so many, but still the other STM, women dominate it. But you know what's the issue, Syafinaz? Women do not stay in the workforce. Okay, so for me, that's a bigger issue, right? I mean, I'm harping on STEM, where now I know women are the majority in the university. We are, we rajin belajar kan? We are good people, we always do that. Boys are always naughty, but I got a son and I got a daughter, so I know that. I know the difference. But having said that, my biggest issue is now I talk to women and say, please stay in the workforce. Because any country you've seen that with a higher GDP, when you have balanced women and men in the workforce, right? 45, 55, name it, balanced workforce, the womenomics actually becomes crucial for our GDP. So sekarang I don't talk about STEM all. I say women, please, anak seorang ke, 2 orang ke, 10 orang ke, please stay in the workforce. So I think it's a myth now to say that women are not in STEM anymore. It's the problem is after they graduate, do they stay in the workforce, which is okay if they took time out to be a mother and be in a motherhood. But in European and Western countries, they come back after that. And here it fizzles off. You don't do the second leap and coming back to the workforce.
Yeah. On that note, Tan Sri, you have been in the legal world since 1996. Has the role of women actually changed since then from your point of view? Like, were there lesser women at that point of time and you see the increase and the force? Did you see that, Tan Sri?
Yes, of course. It is phenomenal actually, because when I came to the bench in 1996, there was only very, very few female judges, even in the lower courts, but now almost half or more than half at every tier are women. So, and I think what helps greatly is that the male judges, the chief justices, but we have the top 4 and all that are, they go on merit. They base the appointment on merit. So that's very helpful. And I think we must have that system in other spheres, not just in judiciary. So in that sense, that's why I said I really appreciate those in the judiciary, because we mindful of considerations of merit, and because we are trained, I think, to be impartial, to be equal. We are trained that way. So then it doesn't matter what gender you are, as long as you do a good job. So that's how I think women have risen to the top, and a lot of people have been appointed, and women have been appointed. And also, I think these chief justices like Tun Zaki, Tun Raus, Tun Arifin, all that, they are what I call the Renaissance men. They are open-minded. They take people as they are, and because they appreciate good work, hard work, so that's why I think we have come a long way since then.
Good to hear that, Tan Sri. On that note, where Tan Sri mentioned, does not matter, gender does not matter, it's as long as you do a good work. Yeah. Moving on to Farrah on this point, you are the head of the Plastic and Reconstructive and Burns Unit. Was there any kind of notion or perception that, of course, Dr. Farrah is good at this because, women, plastic surgeon and those kind of things, like, I don't see plastic surgery as just being plastic surgery. It's more like, if you're injured in an accident, correct me if I'm wrong, it is still something that you have to look at, you have to do it. So have you ever, faced a perception where, yeah, of course, Dr. Farrah can do well in this sector. She's a woman and this is plastic surgery. Have you faced that, Dr. Farrah?
Yeah, actually, my experiences is quite mixed. First, I should, because I was asking what the audience is made of. Plastic, I just have to be clear, it's not just getting the boobs and the nose jobs and the butt jobs. So I'm more of what you call a humanitarian plastic surgeon. So I do burns, clefts, wounds. So I don't have a Ferrari, folks, and I drive my mom's car, actually. And so I'm not saying that to be like holier than thou or anything, but I'm just saying that's not where my passion lies. I've had people come up saying my whole life is ruined because I have a tight lalat. Nobody's going to marry me. Sharala mentioned about how we're obsessed with certain things, right? The criteria for getting married, etc. Malaysia is full of its own, prejudice, right? So Malaysia, if something happens, say someone says, oh, Sharala's daughter got married. First question, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone, I'm just being very direct. First question as Malaysians will always be, Chinese or Malay? Then the second question will be, fair or not? So that's very ingrained, unfortunately, in Malaysia, where we need to see past that. Again, this is too short a forum to delve into it, but why I'm saying that is to give a framework to what I'm about to say. Which is everyone brings their own prejudice and bias to their personal and professional lives. So back to your question, Syafinaz, what I faced was actually a lot of dengki and fitna. So again, you guys try to translate that to anyone who doesn't speak English. The last 3 years has been the toughest of my life in terms of professional, dealing with the colorful people that make up our work landscape in Malaysia. So I got statements like, who does she think she is? Because she's Farrah Hani, the gymnast, So it'd be equivalent to who does Sharala think she is? Just because she's Sharala. Who does Tan Sri Zainun think she is? Just because she's a Tan Sri. So people, I faced a fair amount of not very nice things because people assumed I got where I am because of certain non-marriage-based things, as opposed to me working my tushy off for things, So but I have for every one person who says something bad about you, I just want to emphasize to the audience here, it can be a very isolating experience, but for one bad person, there's 10 good people. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. And because especially with COVID, there's been a lot of depression and anxiety, I think in all professions. Lawyers especially, you guys, I don't pretend to understand the nuances of your profession, but I have a fair few lawyer friends who are going through a tough time. And they have nowhere to go. And that's the problem in Malaysia, is that we do not, nowhere to go, no one to speak to. Yes, we can talk about all the helplines, but the thing is you call a helpline, you speak to one person. You call it next day, it's a different person. So we don't have continuity of care. So in our country, we really need to work on destigmatizing mental health, mental strength, because it's all our professions, right? I'm a medic talking to a bunch of lawyers and of course a STEM superstar. But Sharala, I'm sure you've met people who you really think to yourself, yeah, this one really just needs counseling, then the meeting would have gone so much better. But people don't know how to deal with their emotions. People don't know The younger generation think they know, but they still need support, right? So I did deal with what you have mentioned, Syafinaz, but it was not so much with being a woman per se. When I sought help for the situation I was in, then woman was an issue. And let me share this because it'd be interesting to know if it resonates with Tansri and Sharala as well, or indeed with you, Syafinaz. When I realized this was happening to me, it's very, like I mentioned, isolation, because when you know you don't do something wrong, but the donkey and fitnas are happening and you're like, did I do that? Did I? So, and you're like questioning yourself, you're questioning, it's like being in a very alternate reality. So when I started seeking help, meaning I spoke to mentors, this is related to one of the questions in the Q&A. Someone mentioned a mentor-mentee relationship directed to Tansri. So I spoke to a couple of mentors. You know what was said to me? Farrah, this is happening to you because number one, you don't have a male protector. I was like, what does that mean? I.e., I'm not sleeping with anyone higher up, right? Or whatever, I don't have a protector. My husband, I'm in a PJJ, for those of you who don't know, my husband is an orthopedic surgeon in Ireland. So that should be the door wide open for some, Luther Vandross, love the one you're with. If you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. But no, I'm faithful to my hubby. But no, so apparently I have no protector, no male protector. I'm just me because I'm the head of the unit. And then number two, because I don't wear a tudung, again, I'm speaking very frankly, I'm free-haired. And then number three is that my husband's not in the country. And this is why it makes me an easy target for whatever was happening to me. So I found all that easy to deal with because I knew the truth, right? So how I dealt with it was just to keep my head down, keep on working. And, at the end of the day, when you let your work speak for you, Tansri mentioned merit. Sharala, I'm sure mentioned it. She's mentioned it before in previous panels as well. But again, I just have to emphasize to anyone who's feeling lonely or isolated, if you know what you're doing, you have integrity in your work, you're going to get through fine. I'm at sort of tail end of it. But yeah, sorry, Tansri, you were going to say something?
No, I agree absolutely with you.
It's and the thing is, as cheesy as it sounds, it makes you stronger.
Yes.
I should emphasize at this start, just to share with people, I'm child-free. I'm 44 years old. We're married for a gazillion years, but we just never happened to have kids. We've been checked out.
You can loan mine. I'll pay you to take mine for.
Sharala, I would be a terrible mother. I can barely look after myself. You see, doctor and common athlete drinking Coca-Cola. Huh?
I can see chocolate. Did she just want to give away her children? Yeah.
I think being a mother is a particular noble cause, which I think I'm definitely not built for, Kitty cats and doggies, for sure, but kids, I'm probably not the best person. But the point is, in Malaysia, I get judged a lot for that, being child-free and 44, because most of the time I get told it's because I'm fat. So I don't know if you guys can see, I'm not that, I'm all right. I'm good with myself, but I always get told, this is what I always get told as well. Husband, you okay ke dengan badan you? And I'm like, yeah, I got the junk in the front and the trunk and we're good. It's all fine. But the key point I want to say to all the audience and to Syafinaz and gang is you need to be good with yourself. Whatever you're doing, whether you're a lawyer, you're in STEM, you need to figure out who you are, right? And that's an evolution, that's an evolving process. We're all different people from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And when we recognize the beauty of evolving and that we have the challenges along the way, I think that's the beauty of life, right? And therefore then that goes back to the empathy point that Tansri mentioned, is that we're less harsh when we judge others.
Yes.
We're all guilty, I'm sure, of judging. You see some chickadee with like a super shorts walking around, you're like, yeah, that one asking for it. Then you're like, wait a minute, where did that judgment come from? But that's what we're brought up with, right? Some auntie you grew up with will say, look at that girl, how she dressed. Do you know what I'm saying? So we have a lot of unconscious stuff that's entered our mind as we grow up. So we have to put the work in to re-educate ourselves, like what Sharala mentioned that as well. Like Sharala being involved in the round table where everyone's like, yeah, more STEM. But what Sharala brings to the table is the ground, because she turun padang. So she's able to say, listen, folks, we have people in STEM, but we don't have people staying in the workforce. So in medicine, we say bench to bedside, means you do work in the lab, that's called bench. But if it's not translated to the clinical side, which is the bedside, then this bridge, that's the golden That's the golden bridge. No point you sit in the lab and do wonderful work if it's not going to impact clinically, you know? So, yeah, so there you go. So no problems, ladies, with being a little chubby. In fact, in my case, I'm very chubby, and 44 and childless, you know, life is good. Yeah.
Of course. Yes.
But Syafinaz, can I add to this? Is something that I think what Farrah Farrah said, right? You asked about women in workforce. At the same time, like we're talking even in CATS, we hire highly skilled data scientists, yeah? So we have very rigorous process on how we assess and even before they get to an interview. And I realized when I first started that I always got the guys, you know, it's the guys and a certain nationality make it, okay? And I remembered that even if my head of data scientists at the time was a female, you know, we say make decisions on data. And this is why I really think this goes back to what Farrah is saying, that I had to turun padang. I had to look at all these people that came into that, you know, interview and assessment, and I had to do an infused biasness. I had to go and say that not only I want to take the assessment, I want a merit on if it's a Malaysian, if it's a lady, and all of that should come up to 100%. To allow opportunities for women to get the job if they were just to do assessment and they won't. And I think that's very important that we say that, oh, you know, especially in the world that I live in, right, in data science, that how do we qualify some people and job opportunity, you know? And I think the second part that comes with it, and she said it's Loni and who she needs to talk to, this is where women need to support other women.
Yes.
In workforce, right? Women need mentors. Girls need role models. They need to see people like you, me, dari, you know, Bukit Minyak, Bukit Mentajam, you know, Kampung Kat Pekan, to go down and tell people, yeah, I'm married and Irish orthopedics and I am living and I can do this. Yes, I get. You know, haters will always be haters, correct?
Right.
But I think it's most important women mentor other women. Women pick other women in workplace to help them. And that's the only way we're going to break the chain. Because I know I'll get shot for saying this because I have great women mentors, but we are the hardest against our own kind.
Absolutely.
And I know women hate it when I say it, but somebody has to call it. So I'm going to call it.
You know, Sharala, I agree with you because I think women are our own worst enemies sometimes.
Exactly. You know, like what Farrah said, right? Like terlajak to say that. I have found myself doing that and going like, hey, hold on, shut the F up, right? You are the one who should stop saying this. Yeah. I didn't use the full word, so you can censor that. I think Syafinaz got a big son after this. Right. Really. But,
sorry, Syafinaz, you have some very eclectic people here.
Interesting.
You know, so, but I think it's and I talk about it, and I talk to my female colleagues. I call out this self-realization of what we're doing and the impact we do, and we don't forget, especially when you're in this position. You got to always do a check and balance.
Yes.
And also it's good to follow on from Sharala's point is that there's helping someone up doesn't make any less. It's so basic, but bringing someone up doesn't bring
you down.
You don't bring someone down to bring yourself up and bring it. Because a lot of people, they don't want to bring someone up because they're like, no, I'm the girl at the table. I'm not the woman. If I bring some other woman, I'll be kicked out because that one's hotter and younger. So, you know what I'm saying? So
the insecurity is what we all have to check on.
Yeah. And that's why in what I'm trying to get across to the audience is if you're very secure in yourself, so yeah, someone else comes in. Okay, you go off and do your own thing, like set up your own company, do whatever makes you happy and, you know, follow Sharala's footsteps, etc. Like one thing is we're always, I think, subject to comparisons. Men are getting that way shortly within their own circles, but for women, like I always get compared to my body size. I go back to body size from when I was a gymnast. As Syafinaz mentioned, when I was a gymnast, I was a preteen, flat like iron bod. Like I said, no boobies, no butt, okay? But sorry, I got something in my eye here. I'm not being emotional, I promise.
Yeah, we should have
It's like comedy show already, yeah? I'm sorry. Back to this. It's what was I gonna say? Yeah, so I always get I told you about the child free because I'm fat. Is because they say, Farrah, dulu you kurus. What happened to you now? And I'm like, freaking puberty, and I grew up. I'm half Punjabi and I'm half Malay. It's gonna happen, so I'm gonna have the lumps and bumps, which I'm very grateful for. And again, with freckles, can you guys see I have freckles? So in Malaysia, being a plastic surgeon, I always get asked, muka cantik putih tapi sayang banyak bintik-bintik. And I'm like, these are freckles from my mom. So when she's not around, I look in the mirror, I know she's with me, right? So in Irish culture, it's seen as cute, but in Malaysia, no. Because why? You're not one shade of white. Bodoh, right? Sorry. It has to be pointed out.
Syafinaz, you have a tough time?
Yes. Tan Sri, just moving on to the legal side a bit. Yeah, because Tan Sri, you have decided the case of Indira Gandhi. I think most of us know. It was rather controversial. Not rather, it was indeed controversial, and that's not just gender bias. It's actually, well, if I may just be frank, it's just religious bias as well.
Yes,
and Tan Sri, as a judge at that point of time when you decided that case, was there any, to put it very abruptly, was there any backlash, or were you just labeled as was there a particular label attached, and did you face any issues thereafter?
Okay, Syafinaz, as I was listening to Farrah just now, it came across that this came to me when I was deciding the Indira Gandhi case, because this case is it's not really about women's rights or women's, not so much that. It's more about the legal position actually, but I was also conscious of the rights of mothers and rights of women as well. But when you asked me whether there was any backlash, there was a backlash, but it's all on the internet. So I was unfazed by it because it's something you can take in your stride. You have to take in your stride and know that it comes with the territory. It's okay, but because I'm confident and sure that what I did was correct, despite the sensitivities of the issue, it's important that we put this in place. That first of all, the issue is not about Islam. It's not. It's more about administrative law, and but more importantly, also the rights of the mothers must be respected, because she was given custody. If you remember, she was given custody, but it was taken from her willingly. And so my concern wasn't so much, like I said, the religious part of it. It's nothing to do with religion, but because we have to be conscious of the legal position of the two system of Sharia court and civil courts. And also the other aspect, there's many aspects of it actually. Bias against women, mothers, bias against women, which I was conscious as well. The other is bias against religion. So what came across, like I said, based on the backlash, is because people have said that I betrayed the religion for not condoning the conversion. And like Farrah said, it was because they said, I don't wear the tudung kind of thing, So it was really quite immature kind of position, taking that kind of position. But it's all right because, and someone even said in the internet that Tan Sri Zainun would be a penghuni neraka kind of thing.
You're right at that point.
Horrible. It was horrible. But like I said, we should be unfazed by all this, because like I said, what's important is that we have to make sure that the law is correctly placed, correctly interpreted, and the rights of mothers and rights of women are established. And in this situation, I think it's often the case, which you read in all cases, well, women always get a raw deal. Mothers especially get a raw deal. And I feel that it is time that something must be done to ensure that this is put properly in place and establish that the fact that we cannot allow this to perpetuate. That's why the interpretation has to be done that way. That parent means both mother and father. that sort of thing, isn't it? So I think in that sense, I was happy that I did that decision, and I was very fortunate that the bench was unanimous as well. And these are all men, you see, on the bench, other than I. So Indira Gandhi was a good decision because although I must tell you that I took some months, longer than necessary, to do this case. It's not complex, not that because it's difficult, but because I knew of the implications, the massive implication that will come from that. And because of that, I did a lot of research and reading to make sure that I will not transgress any sensitivities that might come across, and try to minimize any concerns that might arise. But of course, they have, but still, yeah, I'm happy with the decision, and I hope that I think it will go a long way towards making sure that mothers and women's rights are protected, as you can see in recent cases in the federal court.
Yes, that's right. At that point of time, it was very, very, how do I put it, like controversial. And after that, everything toned down. Yep. Perhaps we can take one question, and it's actually addressed to, it's not addressed to anybody, but I guess probably Sharala, maybe this one is suitable to be answered by Sharala. Do you, because you're in the STEM sector, yeah, as much as we want to stay in the force.
You're going to ask me about the house husband thing, but apparently not. Yeah, go on. Because my husband just walked past, so.
Oh, okay. Let's start with Sharala, and then probably we'll go to the house husband question. Actually, where is that? Okay. All right. This question: do you experience resistance when you're leading men? And then, if so, how do you deal with probably in your sector of industry? Is there such circumstances that you face?
I had an aha moment. Okay. So I did not realize this. So at one point, my company had 60% women leaders. Okay. So what happened is, like we are emotional, that comes with drama, and I will call spade a spade, right? We deal with things differently. And I remember at that point, a male colleague of mine said this, yeah? He turned to me and he said, look, I've always worked with a male boss, okay? And I know how to deal with this. I've been brought up to be polite to women. So when you all are yelling at me or emotional with certain situations, I do not know how to react.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, okay. And then he goes, right, like men would have a heavy discussion and they would go for a drink and be done. We forgive. We never forget. So I had to work on that because it is not common to have so many female bosses out there, female colleagues who all have strong opinions, and the way men work is slightly different. And I had to work on that. In fact, I thought, oh gosh, I have to do a diversity course the other way around, right? Inclusivity for the men. And women have to think, and what we say and how we say it. And because we are strong women, we think like, I would say things and I will move on, right? But those kind of things sometimes linger on. So yes, I this was 2016, 2017. I had an aha moment, like as a leader or a CEO, like I did not see this coming. So, yeah. So I had to work on it.
Right.
In fact, this is quite, I do talk about it, and I don't know how females feel about it, but I do have, like my husband probably survived this Indian marriage and whole thing because he's a psychoanalyst. But having said that, this reality that I do is, am I being too woman about it? I stop and I check that. Like we are like, now that Farrah has opened up the floodgate, right? Like you're PMSing, you cannot let go of the smallest thing. And you're like, and people are like, no, come on, stop. Right? Walk away, watch Korean drama, whatever, right? You don't have to always get the bull by its horn. You don't always have to do that. And sometimes we think that, it's our character, we want to address it and move on. And sometimes it's okay. So I had to do a lot of, stop and self-reflect on what kind of leader I want to be, what kind of leader I want to be seen as. And it takes a lot of, stop and think moment.
Definitely.
Yeah, thanks, Sharala. Do you also want to answer the question on house husband? Since you highlighted it.
Yes, introduce it.
So since this whole thing about who will marry me, right? And then I married at the age of 35 and I married late. But one of the things that's always been in my mind, and I have kids, I have successful friends who are stay-at-home mom, and there's always this guilt. Okay, this guilt about, should I, my friend went to Cambridge and did law, and she decided to stay home because her kids are, it's all about the kids, and oh shit, am I doing something wrong? Should I be the one staying at home? And I remember this, Robert told me this very clearly: successful kids comes from successful parents. Right? Not parents.
Yes.
Exactly, right? And I hardly use this analogy, right? Monkey see, monkey do. I'm not calling my kids monkey, although most of the time they are. But this is the inspiration, I want my daughter to see me love what I do. I also think I would have been a nightmare mom and a wife if I stayed at home. And I think he's not telling that, but I will take it if he thought I would be fantastic being a great mom if I did what I did. So yeah, there's no house husband here, but Robert also runs his own business. And that's also the reason why we moved back, for the ecosystem to do that. And a lot of ladies that come up to me after a talk asking, I remember vividly this one girl asking me, I'm engaged to be married and I have this opportunity to start a business. How do I decide? And I remember looking at her and going like, why it has to be this or that? For me, I couldn't fathom that, because if you want something, you go figure it out. You use all. I'm the least shameful person to say I leech on my parents. I brought them from Bukit Bertajam to come and live with me to help me support my children. So I can do and I'm not guilty, I'm not shy about it. So I think it's, women always dream big for their children, their husband, their family, but I don't know why they cannot dream big for themselves. I don't know what kind of sacrifice that is supposed to mean. So I think that's why that nobody in a family needs to sacrifice to be a house husband or a housewife. I think you should love whatever it is. If you love being at home with your kids, be it. Never do it because you're guilty to do it. Kids can see through that, okay? They're jahat like that.
Thanks, Sharala. Yeah, that's a good one, actually.
Yes, I know.
I'm looking for some interesting questions so that, since this is supposed to be a chill session.
Well, so Syafinaz looks, I just carrying on some points from Sharala and Tansri.
Sure.
I love how they mentioned, so the concepts of laws and governance doesn't just stop with our legal and judiciary system.
Yeah.
It permeates through everything, right? But it's how you want to adopt that as part of your daily accountability. I go back to integrity. But a lot of people, they do the whole, do you remember a long time ago, that was the custom officer, close one eye? So a lot of people would prefer to not think about governance, not think about the legal side of things. What is the right thing? Actually, in life, it's very easy to know what is the right thing to do. This is my fundamental thing I would like to convey across. I mean, you've heard it in various angles from all the speakers today. And the thing that Tansri mentioned that is also very common in medicine is anticipation of complications. So Tansri, you mentioned how you took a few months to prepare. Yes. And that's something I try so much to explain to trainee surgeons, not medical students, because they're still learning. They're not, the maturity is not there yet because they're still learning about disease. When you become a trainee surgeon or a trainee specialist, you're learning not just how the disease manifests, but how to manage the different ways of managing it, because it's not just one way to manage anything. Same in legal, same in STEM, same in most things, right? You want to goreng pisang, it depends how much sugar you want to put in. This chef will cook it this way, this person will cook it that way. The anticipation of complications requires preparation. Yes. So I always tell someone, a surgeon is more than just operating. Any monkey can operate, to use Sharala's monkey analogy. Monkeys are very popular today. You can actually train someone, right? You can train someone, cut here, cut there. If you see this, then you cut that. You see that, you clip that. But what makes a surgeon is the pre-op, intra-op, and post-op, meaning what you do when you encounter different things. Same with legal, halfway through the discussion, the prosecutor throws this, the defense throws that. How do you adjust, right? But the thing is, people don't understand that. They're like, no, I'm a surgeon, means I must cut. Yeah. Or else one of the options we always should tell a patient when they talk about their options is fully conservative, meaning no surgery. That's always, and the thing is, I do have colleagues who say, oh, that's a very woman thing to say, Farrah, because, you take history like a woman, like a psychiatrist. I should quantify that, because surgery is a very male-dominated field. It's surgery and sports leadership as well, which I was in as well. Very male-dominated field. So what Sharala described with her experience with male leaders, I have that in when I was a little stint with the sports leadership, which really was very eye-opening and very disgusting to sit in a meeting and see how it. I'll give you an example. After a certain meeting, there was a certain chap who was sitting down at the coffee shop, because had to have coffee or makan after that. He pats his thigh and says, "Farrah, datang duduk sini." This is the version of Farrah he was talking to. This grown-ass woman, this grown woman you see before you. I mean, I don't know him well enough for him to do that. It's different if I'm actually okay with if it's someone who you're very cordial with, but the fact that he thought, oh, she's a gymnast, so maybe she's, whatever. And I was just like, no. But I just didn't acknowledge it. I walked away. But the point is, people don't realize, and especially certain people who are in privileged positions, I have to be careful how I phrase this, what they may not have earned the correct way, but it was entrusted upon them. They think it goes into their ego. So they think they can carry themselves with egoistic narcissism, if that makes sense. And we have a saying in surgery: a good surgeon knows how to operate. A better surgeon knows when to operate. But the wisest and best surgeon knows when not to operate. I'm just going to let that, just with you guys for a while, because because it goes back, because that requires maturity and it requires control, right? And for the younger audience members here, some of you may know about how Meghan and Harry are crafting their own way, creating their own way because of whatever they have faced in the UK. Now, I have frequent discussions and debates with my mom, because she's very pro-royal family and I'm very pro-Harry and Meghan. So because Meghan is mixed race, like how I'm mixed race, and a lot of issues that they face as a couple, it's almost, of course, on a much smaller scale, it's what we faced. So I faced a lot of opposition marrying my husband from both sides, because he was white. Why Malaysia not good enough, is it? I got a lot of that. And it became worse when we didn't have children, because the worst thing was some aunties who chuchok my mom to say, this wouldn't have happened if she married Malaysian, because white sperm is not good. And I was like, it's hard to discuss that. So just like how Sharala's a sort of a counselor, unofficial counselor for women in STEM, I do want to make sure to anyone out there who is either a divorcee, you're a single person, you're not the 2 + 5 kids, 2.5 kids, you're not in that family setup, there is nothing wrong with you. I just want to make sure everyone gets it, whether you're female or male, because when people can't have children, the women, first of all, gets blamed, but the men gets a lot of statements from other men. And if you're Malay in this country, you get told, marry a second or third, they will give you children. Yes. And if you're a man who loves the first wife, it takes a man with big kahunas to say, no, man, I'm good with this one. And we're in love and we're good. We'll make it work. Kids or no kids. But most people will take got ticket, hall pass to get a number 2 or 3. If that's what rocks your boat, do it, But I like what Tan Sri mentioned, I would get accused of being when you talk about religion a certain way in this country, you have to be very careful.
Yeah.
So with my opinion, That's one of the reasons, Tan Sri and Sharala, I was troublemaker,
Can see that.
That's why you're choosing the question. Just as Sharala had mentioned about reflection.
Right.
I just want to say that that's a very important skill.
It was so painful to hear you say that, Farrah, like the part that you said that this is what I tell my team that not to do, right? Because I was told when I worked for someone, don't grab attention to yourself, keep your head low and do your freaking job.
Yes.
And when I started the company, anybody said that is fired. Because there's always a kuti Shah in that group that wants shine. So it's always about me. Right? So that is why it was so important that, it broke my heart when I heard you say that. That's what I do. I keep my head down. No girl or guy in this time and era should do that. If you're good in what you do, people should be there wooing you.
Yes.
Haters will always be haters, right? And like I said, I have no time for them. But reflection is important, but haters will always be haters.
But the reflection part is good because so anytime I've had something adversarial, I tell everyone they have to do this. They have to look at their weaknesses first before to see if there's any merit in that criticism of yourself. We cannot be so naive to think that we're so perfect, right? Not naive, not narcissistic. But you also, a challenge to all the audience is that if you're in an argument, you need to be able to put yourself in the person you don't agree with shoes. Say if you're not a Trumper, you need to be able to see what Trumpers would say, if that makes sense. And that's very difficult, right? That's a skill. Sorry, I know Syafinaz wants to get through the question.
Yeah, I was just like looking at the question for Tan Sri Zainun, which I think really relates to what we were talking, like, women should help women to grow, to go further. And while this question may not be just about women, because we are breaking the bias here, right? So Tan Sri, what do you think about this mentor-mentee relationship in the young associates and senior counsel, or between legal officers and senior officers and judges? Because I think the issue is sometimes we lack that mentor-mentee relationship or the guidance. Right. Well, it happens even to lawyers in the firm and those things. Yeah.
Okay, I will not be an authority to talk about counsel and in-house counsel and so on. I can safely say I can speak with authority when it comes to judicial legal services. So, well, I think it's a very important concept to have. We don't have it, actually. We don't have a formal mentor-mentee structure in the judiciary. But what we do have is an informal one. And that's already good. Because when I was in the judiciary, I had one or two mentors, and they are women. They are Tan Sri Siti Noma was my mentor. Yeah, she was the first CJM, Chief Judge Malaya. She took me under her wings and gave me a lot of confidence and helped me, supported me to make me feel comfortable, because it can be unnerving. It is. Of course, you can think that it is easy enough to be a judge. It is not. But for the first time, when I was on the bench, she was there to help me. And not only her, when you say about breaking the barriers, it's just not big with women. In her case, she helped me, but there were other male judges who were also helpful, so it's not just being mentor-mentee with women. Although I do believe that if we are in a position of power or authority, women leaders, we must try. Reach out to the younger ones to make sure that they are comfortable, that they are adjusted in what they do. And I do that because I've had this experience with other judges, like Titi Noma, Datuk Gopal Sri Ram. He will plonk his books on my table and say, Zainun, read this, kind of thing. And I will read and say, okay, look at this judgment and look at that judgment and see how you can do better than this sort of thing. So that was good. And I really appreciate those who have helped me. So that's why, because of this informal structure we had in the judiciary, I think it has helped me a great deal. And when I became a senior member of the bench, I took upon this role to help others under me, not just junior judges, officers, because officers will be our future leaders. Legal officers in the judiciary will be our future leaders. They will be High Court judges later on. And it is important that they inculcate the sense of accountability, integrity, respect, and so on. And also, not only that, they also have to balance their knowledge of the law with how to interact in society. Because in our culture, Asian culture, we are always very self-effacing, isn't it? And we are diffident, very diffident and shy. So it's important that we inculcate a sense of confidence in them, because most of them, some of them, not most, some of them are sheltered. They lead sheltered lives, and they will be they'll be quite faced with having to talk in public. But public speaking, writing judgments or opinions will come with a job. So it is important that we get this across, that it's important. And so what I did was, I told the Chief Justice that we have to do something about this, and the best way would be to get someone from an organization to help our officers, to be better, to be more proficient in English, for instance, because the education system is that we are lacking in that area. So because the officers will have to write the summary of the cases and an executive summary in English, and it is better that we do it properly. So when we checked with the British Council, it cost an arm and a leg just to have someone to come and teach English to them. So I said, all right, we have to devise a system where we can help them. So I spoke to Chief Justice. Can I, talk to the other judges and see whether we can organize a class for them? And I will drop a schedule. And I gathered some judges who are friendly to me, Justice Zara, Ibrahim, Justice Arizato, Justice Nalini, and so on, and gave them various subjects to look at. Justice Nalini would be in charge of, say, grammar and comprehension. Justice Zahra on reading, and so on. So I took the best part. I took literature. Okay, so we devised a system where the officers will then sign up, and we'll make it compulsory actually, but we will devise a system where whenever the judges are free, when they're not sitting, they can call the officers to go to any of the courtrooms, and we have a class. It worked very well because after one whole year of teaching English to the officers, I think the summary improved. They are better at speaking, and they are confident in speaking in public. And in my class, I taught them various rudiments of English literature and poetry and so on. Not so much because of the language. It is important because language and the law is always together, right? It's synonymous with. So how you interpret the law is also how you interpret legal text, literature. And especially Shakespeare and plays and so on, a lot of legal texts are there. And for instance, Merchant of Venice, you can see that all the issues of literature rise, like the contract, public policy, and so on, is all there. It happened in 300 years ago in Merchant of Venice, or Measure for Measure, or the Tempest, or all these are all important for us to interpret. So I think, so I went through very generally with officers to ask them to see how they can look at the text and analyze the legal, literary text, and see whether they can relate it to what they do and in the legal opinions. So then their sense of interpretation is heightened. They become more analytical, and also more aware and sensitized to all those things around them. Because you see, if you read Shakespeare, all the issues of betrayal, anger, jealousy, love, revenge, and all those play out in the courtroom every day of our lives. You check any law book in any jurisdiction, any age, the same issues will arise thousands of years ago and now. So you see, so it is all there. So human nature is universal, I think, and it is there. It doesn't change. So it is important that they understand this. It's when I say, when you say that a judge's is emotional, you have to be, to understand the psyche of the litigant before you. You have to, and to understand what goes on in their minds. Then only you can decide correctly.
Yes, exactly. It's not a disadvantage to have some emotions when you're deciding at all. Yeah.
Far from it.
Far
Of
from it.
course, you have to balance lah. I don't you go crazy.
Janganlah.
You know, you have to
Throwing
balance.
books.
No, you have to be controlled, composed, like I said, But at the same time, it's important to have all these. So, and we had a lot of fun actually, because then because of the interaction with the officers in the judiciary, both men and women officers, and also the judges, we had our own interaction with the judges, and so the mentorship doesn't come only from women judges; it comes from male judges as well. So that is why I said I really appreciate being in judiciary, because we are very inclusive in our mentorship program. Although it's like I said, it's not a formal one, but it worked. It goes a long way towards making us all better persons. And some of the officers were very appreciative, because they said, "Oh, Tan Sri, I never knew before that there's such a thing as haiku. Haiku is Japanese poem. I never knew there was a poet, Rendra, and Pablo Neruda." And so, and I made them at the end of I forced them actually at the end of the year of study. I said, "All right, guys, you have to break you into groups." I talked to Chief Justice Tun Arifin. Let's have a competition with there were 112 officers. We divide into 5 groups. So each group will be given a play to recite, a poem to recite, and so on and so on. And we had a competition, and it went very well, because everyone was so competitive. They wanted to make sure that they win. So I said, okay, I gave an email. If you want, so I said, all right, Group A will do Midsummer Night's Dream. Group B will be doing Julius Caesar, and so on. So, and different.
That's interesting.
Very interesting. Yes. And they were bonding well as well, because otherwise they're so far too busy to talk to each other. But because of the competition, they had to get into action and got into each other, to speak to each other and practice together. So it was really good. And because of that, they overcame their shyness. They overcame their, insecurities. And they were able to speak very well publicly. So I was very pleased with that. And we made it for the years that I was there. We made a yearly event. We call it the English Day, and we call people from outside, like Judge Shanker, who was retired at that time, Philip Ho, and Tansi Zarina, to be judges of those competition.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
That's very good. Yeah. At times they don't even realize that they actually have time, because they're just so
Yes.
But actually, when this thing is imposed in a sense on them, then they were like, "Hey, actually, we can do this," and it actually,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in fact, when later, because some judges were in my group, I called them to make sure that they teach these officers. One of them, I won't name him. He's still a sitting judge. I won't embarrass him. He said to me that, "Hey, Zainun, I wish I'd gone to your class." Why? Because he was overseas, and every year, for a few months, and in UK, of course, it is normal practice to have every weekend when people meet in to have dinner and coffee and cigar and all that, pot and wine and all that. Normally, they would then sit down. Someone play the piano and someone will recite the poem and so on and so on. That's a culture, I guess. So then he said, every week when that happens, this judge said, I will slide down to the couch and wish and pray that no one sees me. That no one calls me up. No one calls me up to say, come on, you better recite the poem or say something. So I said, okay, so then how did you escape all this while? So you never got to do anything? No. How do you escape? Oh, I baca ayat kursi. So, so what's really
Okay.
I was
That's
so
fun.
yeah. So what I'm going to say is that it's important for us to be confident about writing anything, and I'm very happy that the officers are now able to, off the cuff, can recite a line from Hamlet, for instance. Isn't it great? When they didn't have any clue before, this sort of thing. So in that sense, I'm very happy that I mentored those people, those officers, and they still keep in touch with me, even though I'm retired, and say that, oh, you're doing this or doing that, and can I ask your help? And I say, sure, of course, and that goes a long way as well. And like I said, all the lady judges, because you had to have someone to start this going, and then only it happens. And I think right now, the good mentors in the federal court, like Datuk Mary Lim, I think, Justice Nalini, are all good mentors. I think they have undertaken this task very well. And so I think it's important that we help each other.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Yeah, very, very insightful sharing. So we have like a few more, like 7-8 minutes. I think the main issue that we face as a woman is work-life balance. I think at times that question is posed to us many times, whereas an equally busy man won't get that question. Yeah. Even a single woman like me face that question. So I'm wondering, why is my colleague not being asked that? Why are you asking me? He was also in the office until 10, right? Yeah. So if I may ask Dr. Farrah, because you are holding many, as in you're volunteering in many things, and you are in many committees. Do you face this question, and do you think this is even a relevant question, or is something that people tend to have perception about, like work-life balance towards a woman?
Yeah, that's a great question, which is why to the panel today and also to the audience, I spent quite some time today sharing my own experiences, so it's legit and there's authenticity behind what I say, because a lot of times work-life balance, everyone's different. What is work? What is life? To somebody, life is doing a wonderful job in the office, and they actually love staying a couple of hours overnight. Like Tan Sri mentioned, if Tan Sri Goparan put the books there, she's not going to take that home. Maybe she was going to stay and read, and that brings joy. Just like sometimes I do a ward round at 9 p.m. with the MO medical officer on call, because I don't have kids to go back to. I know my mom's got her dinner, she's taken her meds and whatnot. And because I stay up so I can speak to my husband, there's an 8-hour time difference. So it's different to everyone, which is why I keep going back to the key point of knowing yourself, knowing what happens, and be aware that what your good intentions can also be misjudged. Just to mention from what Tan Sri mentioned, which was a lovely question about mentors and mentees. Mentees have to be open to being guided. Like how Tan Sri, how you spoke this now, Tan Sri, about somebody putting books. Believe it or not, there are people, and Sharala would probably have experienced this. If you do that today, the person who gets plonked the books in front of will be like, aku dah banyak kerja, bagi kerja lagi, and goes on social media and says, OMG, TSZA is such a slave driver. Not knowing that social media is, everybody can read it, but
absolutely.
But the point is, sometimes mentor relationship, it has to be a very mutually respectful thing, because some mentors would see, mentors are not problem solvers. If you have a problem and you go to a mentor will provide guidance, but they're not going to go up and beat up the person who's causing you to have an awful time. So when I went to seek help, from my experience that I mentioned earlier, it was really just to see, how do I figure out what's going on up here and in my heart? Because I love where I work. I love the patients, I love my students, but I was so unhappy going to work. It was just because of all the, like what you mentioned, Syafinaz, when people say that thing, you're single, but they go, oh, why you got no life? Whereas Johnny right next to you, I'm just sorry if there is a real Johnny. But
that's not. That's
personal. That's personal.
Yeah, personal, yeah. But at the end of the day, when it comes to work-life balance, it's all a question of moderation. It's just like what has been mentioned today. How you carry yourself, being brave, being humble, like the example Tan Sri mentioned about the gentleman in the slinking in the corner. We all need to be brave and confident, but we also need to be humble and full of humility. And somewhere in the middle of varying degrees, that's where we find ourselves. And Tan Sri, you don't have to worry about Pablo Neruda, because there's a TV show called How I Met Your Mother. So the younger generation here, I forgot which season it was. There's a very handsome gentleman who comes in as part of the episode and quotes Pablo Neruda, "I'm a woman, show me you're a man." Wow, all the girls are like, woohoo! Go Google it, you guys.
I will Google tonight.
Yeah, but work-life balance, it's something that is a very unique prescription. It's very customized. There's no one size fits all, which is why I really hope all now we've got 81 minus myself, all 80 people here today actually do take the time to know yourself and recognize the weaknesses in ourselves, and And then that helps you determine what makes up the work, what makes up the life of the whole balance situation. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
And sorry, I just wanted to add, because it was in some of the questions, how come men get easily forgived? How come men are treated differently than women? You know what? You navigate that space, and hopefully for our generation and the future generations, we change the discourse, we change the conversation. And even if it makes you unpopular, you do it in a way with diplomacy and decorum. You don't sit down at the table and yell and you know, be all unelegant about it, because people will listen to you. Like, look at how when Tan Sri, Sharala, even yourself, Syafinaz, when you speak, everyone's, well, whoever is in this particular view is keeping quiet, you know, and listening. Nobody's talking over anyone. We're all, you know, we're all so invested in what the other person is saying. But it's how you carry yourself. And it's, for that to happen, you need to know yourself. I really can't emphasize that enough. We should write a book. Tan Sri, Sharala, all of us are going to knowing yourself.
All right. Okay? Shall we co-author it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Farrah. Ms. Sharala, do you have anything to add to that? How do you balance career, life, and passion?
I think my staffs and colleagues think I don't sleep. I'm just this evil and that's always away. But I think for me, I totally think this work-life balance is a good HR thing to talk about. Because at the end of the day, if you love what you do, it's not a job.
It's not a job.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's not a job. And I try to tell that. I had a small aha moment with my son. So he was 5 years old, and every morning I drop him in school, right? There will be a drama like, oh, why do kids have to go to school? Why do we have to study, you know? And I used to tell him like, oh, because when you grow up, you can earn lots of money and buy all the toys in the world. I don't know how else to relate to a 5-year-old, right? And then that story became like, you know, my parents, right? My parents are typical Indian parents who will tell, don't disturb mama and papa because they have to go to work. It's important they earn the money, right? Our generation hear that. So then the drama continued the morning going like, so why do adults have to go to work? Why is that you all have to earn money? You know, and that was a moment it hit me that I don't go to work because I remember I squat down to his level and say, Anton, Mama goes to work because Mama like what I do. You know, even for me, it was like, hold on, it's not what my mom used to tell about that, right? Don't wake him up. He's the breadwinner. You know, it was not. The narrative wasn't that. And I think for me, there was a realization that, and I tell all my team, all my colleagues, that the day that you get up from bed, like what Farrah said, and you go like, shit, I have to see so-and-so's person's face, you need to come and have that conversation. I'm very clear, no matter at what age, nobody should go through that. Stop whining and bitching. If you are in an environment like, you know, my friends, right? They come or boss, I go like, come on, you pave your path. If you're good in what you do, you will get it. And I think that's exactly what Farrah did, right? Like, hell, I love what I do. The environment is toxic. What else can I get to? Either I change myself or I change the place I work.
Next, Sharala, that's one of the questions in the Q&A session. It's about, I think, something about how do you introduce change to ideas that are new and unpopular? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very good way to follow up from what Sharala said, because it's in a few of the questions. This is to reflect on what Tan Sri mentioned, is you need to know the system you're working in. If I was working in Ireland, if I worked in the States, it's totally different systems socially, and the construct is totally different. In Malaysia, you have to work within certain things. Again, I go back to culture. Right. And Tan Sri herself mentioned, you have to, so you want to introduce a new idea. Don't be scared, but you must respect the system that you work in. Right. Go and be a beautiful, do whatever you want to do, spread your wings and fly, do what you have to do, but you must respect the system of which you function and how the society functions. I hope that's not too vague. I hope it makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Because you need to have that respect for the chair. You may not like the person who is the superior, but you have to respect the office of the person. I think it's the same in legal world as well. You have to respect that, because then you have to get your point across in a way that will be heard, which reflects on credibility.
Yeah.
So you have to introduce yourself as a person with credibility as opposed to a bull in a china shop, you know, like, oh, I got a point. Everyone listen to me, you know? So you have to, again, it goes back to carrying yourself properly, you know?
Yeah.
No, I kind of have an added to the culture change, right? So when I came back from Sweden, and Sweden is a trust-based country, okay? So when I came back, when I started CATS, was so important. I loved that, right? You take responsibility for your actions. So when I started building things in the HR system where we have unlimited leave, we tell freedom comes with responsibility. You take leave, you go figure out who's going to do your job, to pass the baton and all that. It was so hard for my HR person to get a head around that because there's this process, there's this IR and all that. And they go like, this is not our culture. Malaysians will misuse this culture. And I remember that it took me many years to fight that because I'm a Malaysian who thrived in this culture. So why in God's name you're telling a Malaysian that they will misuse this, right? So that this whole thing about breaking the barrier, understanding that, you know, the whole trust system was, I trust you come to work because you like what you do and you will do what is needed. That's my message about the trust, right? And if you fail to not to do that, I think the other thing that we have issues in our, probably just not our culture, all of us, having the difficult conversation.
Right.
Sitting down, you know, I used to shy away, right? Confrontation, ayo, eat me up, right? I'm loud, but confrontation, I can, unless I'm very charged up. But I have to learn over the years that holding people accountable means having the difficult conversations without aggravating the situation. And that's a skill that I have to learn and refine and still working on it. So I mean, I just wanted to talk about the culture and breaking that. I had a different situation I had to fight.
Excellent point to share. Yeah, Tansi, you have anything to say about that? We're
Okay. What I think, you see, our theme of redefining bias and stereotypes and so on. I think we women shouldn't let our anger, sorrow, or frustration or disappointment with the system, on the issue of a bias even, to shatter our sense of self-worth. We shouldn't allow it. In fact, we should come to terms with it and handle it with our innate intelligence. You know, we can do it quietly because how people perceive you is how you behave towards them. And you know, like Farrah said, you have to, you know yourself first, and you know how to handle people, and you then deal with it quietly with your innate intelligence. You can do it. I think we shouldn't yell and scream, and there's no point in doing that. We do it quietly but intelligently, and I think we must handle it with finesse. This thing, isn't it?
yes,
I think we can.
that's true. Thank you so much, Tan Sri, Sharala, and Farrah. It has been a very, very exciting session, interesting, and we still have the attendees with us. No, I was just worried they will just leave, you know, but well, so exciting. How would
Actually,
they?
more, Syafinaz. It's all your great moderating because we started with 70 something, now there's 81. So
No, I think that excellent speakers we had. Well, thank you again. Thank you for your time, Tan Sri, taking off time from your very, very busy schedule, as well as Dr. Farrah and Sharala. Yep, very grateful to have you all here, and hopefully next year, if all goes well, then we can have another session. Interesting speakers we had.
But meanwhile, don't be strangers. Let's meet for coffee if you're not in Ireland or I'm not in Sweden.
I'm definitely here. I'm here. I think PM just announced the borders are open.
Nice
Sorry?
meeting you. Thank you for being with us, and you know, I'm meeting you for the first time, and it's nice to meet you.
Oh, it's an honor from my side. I mean, I was like, oh, not worthy.
Sharala as well, and Syafinaz is lovely.
Yeah.
It's great, you know. Sisterhood is great, isn't it?
Well, it is. And, it's good when you know you're not alone. And I just sorry, Syafinaz, I know we're short of time, but you know how Tan Sri wrapped up with the first line. Tan Sri, what did you say just now about
Our anger, shatter our sense of self-worth.
Yes, shatter. Yeah, that's keyword. Thank you so much. I made a note here. That's what happened to me. Remember, I told you about the last 3 years, Syafinaz and all the audience. And I'll tell you how I realized it. I didn't know at the time, because when you're in a self-worth doubt thing, you're second guessing yourself. I had to have my husband tell me from across the way, "You're a great surgeon. You're patient, Sayang." You know. But that's just that. But my mom, what happened was I overheard my mom one day. Come home from work and I sit across from my mom. My dad has passed away some time ago. So I sit across my mom for dinner. So I heard her say to an aunt of mine in New York, I'm very worried about Farrah. She's a shell of herself. She's not her usual cheery self. What's happening at work is killing her. And then that really hit me. That got me here because then I realized, what am I doing? You know, it's not just about me. It's bigger than me. And then I looked at my students. And then once I started embracing that I needed to seek help, and what I mean help is that I didn't see a psychiatrist or anything, but what I mean by help is I spoke to mentors who educated me on all the saluran, what is saluran? The ways of finding avenues of getting help in terms of admin. Because what was being done to me was fundamentally, I knew my rights. I didn't know my rights then, but I learned my rights. I learned that there was a pink book, Tan Sri. I didn't know we had a MO, civil servants have a buku pink.
Yes, buku pink.
So I studied that, just like how you studied your book. I studied that to learn my rights. And that gave me so much strength, you guys. And but the catalyst for that was my mom's words. So I just wanted to just say to everyone here, just please make sure you're not alone. Get help whichever way you can. And you know, reach out to anyone who would understand. Don't try, this is going to sound very general, but please try to avoid turning to drink and drugs. It's very tempting, whatever religion you are. Yes. It will show in our professions. And you're stronger than you think. It sounds cheesy, but I mean, look at me. I'm sitting here talking to you guys. You know, it's some things that was said about me were very unpleasant. I'm sure for Tan Sri and Sharala as well. Right. And you get through and you're stronger. Trust me. Now I'm not Teflon yet, but I'm getting there. And God has a way of doing things. I get patients coming in saying, no, we only want you. You know, things happen. Is what I'm trying to say. So please stay strong. Okay, stay strong and live a full life.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Farrah. Thank you, Tan Sri. Thank you, Sharala, for being with us. Thanks, everyone, for attending.